Imagine a river that sustained one of the Middle East's greatest civilizations for centuries. Today, that same river runs dry for most of the year. How did one of Iran's most important rivers reach this point? To answer that question, we need to look beyond the river itself. We need to zoom out and explore the entire Zayandeh Rud watershed. Once the largest river of Iran's central plateau, the Zayandeh Rud was the source of life, the cradle of civilization. Today, it lies parched, fractured, and at the center of dispute between multiple provinces. Its riverbed once supplied drinking water, supported agriculture, and fueled industry. Now, it can barely carry enough water to sustain itself. Some believe $400 million water transfer project could solve the crisis. But is the river really the problem, or is something much bigger? The Zayandeh Rud watershed covers nearly 27,000 square kilometers. It is part of the larger Gulf Huni basin, with 93% located in Isfahan province and the remaining 7% in Charmahal and Bakhtiari. At the first glance, the 7% may not seem important, but in reality, it determines the fate of the entire river. The Zayandeh Rud begins in the mountains of Charmahal and Bakhtiari. Its flow depends almost entirely on annual rainfall. In wet years, the rivers carry abundant water. In dry years, its flow naturally declines. Because of this, many people believe drought alone is responsible for today's crisis. But the story is far more complicated than that. Over time, population growth, industrial expansion, and rising water demand transformed the watershed. For centuries, communities learned how to share the river's water according to the seasons. That system supported agriculture, supplying drinking water, and kept the river alive. So, what changed? To answer that, we need to go back several decades. The idea of bringing more water to the Zayandeh Rud isn't new. Centuries ago, during the Safavid Empire, engineers already dreamed of redirecting water into the river. But the technology simply didn't exist. Everything changed in the early 1950s. Local farmers and merchants asked the government to build the first major water transfer tunnel into the basin. Completed in 1954, it was designed to transfer up to 360 million cubic meters of water every year. The goal was simple: increase summer river flows and expand irrigated farmland. And for a while, it worked. Within just 17 years, annual water availability increased from 805 million to more than 1 billion cubic meters. Then came another turning point. Construction of Zayandeh Rud Dam began in the 1960s and was completed in 1970. At almost the same time, nature seemed unusually generous. A 15-year period of above-average rainfall pushed annual inflows from just over 1 billion to nearly 1.3 billion cubic meters. To many decision-makers, it looked like the water problem had finally been solved. But in reality, that was the beginning of a much bigger mistake. The dam had a clear purpose. It was built to support agriculture, generate electricity, protect Isfahan historic bridges, and supply water to growing steel industry. Those goals seemed reasonable, but the years of abundant rainfall created a dangerous illusion. Decision makers began to believe the watershed had far more water than it actually did. That assumption changed everything. Large steel complexes, military industries, refiners, and power plants were built across the basin. And industries expand, cities expand with them. New satellite towns appeared, populations grew, and water demand kept rising. Soon, the river could no longer keep up. Instead of reducing demand, authorities searched for more water. A second transfer tunnel was completed in 1987, bringing another 250 million cubic meters into the watershed. Land that historically depended on groundwater was now connected to the river. But growing demand quickly consumed that new supply as well. So another transfer project followed, then another. By the early 2000s, water was being imported from multiple neighboring basins. Some projects moved forward. Others faced environmental opposition and were delayed, scaled back, or abandoned entirely. At the very same time, water from the Zayandeh Rud basin was being sent to cities beyond its natural boundaries. Yazd, Kashan, Shahrkhord, Nain, and Brujan all became part of the system. Yazd alone received nearly 98 million cubic meters of water, most of it intended for drinking supplies. Every new pipeline solved one problem, while quickly creating another. Surface water wasn't the only resource under pressure. Beneath the watershed, another crisis was unfolding, one that remained largely invisible. Over 60,000 wells were drilled across the basin. Nearly 40% of them were illegal. Year after year, groundwater was pumped faster than nature could replace it. At the same time, surface water was being stretched to satisfy more farms, more industries, and more cities. Eventually, the watershed reached its limit. The result was a water deficit of more than 700 million cubic meters every year. The Zayandeh Rud began to dry. The Gavkhuni wetlands followed. Water right disputes intensified. Pollution increased, and one of Iran's oldest landscapes slowly began to lose its ability to support life. But here is the most important question. Was there simply too little water, or was the watershed asked to do far more than it was ever designed to do? Because those are two very different problems, and they require two very different solutions. The Zayandeh Rud basin eventually became one of Iran's most heavily industrialized watersheds. More than 30 industrial towns were established across the basin. Each new factory, each new city, and each new project increased the demand for water. To keep the system running, more water had to be found, and every new transfer encouraged even more development. The cycle repeated itself again and again. As groundwater reserves declined, the land itself began to sink. Land subsidence became one of the most serious environmental threats facing central Iran. This wasn't simply a water shortage anymore. It had become a problem of planning, a problem of governance, and a problem of ignoring the nature limits of the watershed. Even transferring billions of cubic meters from the sea would not solve this crisis if the same policies continued, because every new source of water would eventually attract new industries, new cities, and new demand. The first step is not finding more water, it's preventing new water-intensive development. The second step is managing water according to the boundaries of watershed, not the boundaries of provinces, because rivers don't recognize political borders. They only follow the laws of nature. Today, the Zayandeh Rud faces a difficult reality. The watershed can no longer support its current combination of agriculture, industry, and urban growth. There is no project that can reverse decades of imbalance overnight. No tunnel, no dam, and no pipeline from the sea. Any lasting solution has to begin by reducing demand, not endlessly increasing supply. That means improving agricultural efficiency, relocating future water-intensive industries toward Iran's southern coasts, expanding wastewater recycling, and respecting the natural limits of the watershed itself. Because the river was never designed to serve unlimited growth, it was designed to support life within its natural capacities. The story of the Zayandeh Rud is not over yet, because this river isn't the only place where decades of unsustainable development left their mark. Hundreds of kilometers to the northwest, another ecosystem was slowly disappearing. A lake that was once among the largest in the Middle East, until almost nothing was left. And that's where our next story begins. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because every crisis has a history, and every history leads to another story.